Hello and welcome to the best books of 2024. These are all the books that I gave 5 stars to last year. I did not include rereads in these, so aside from those, I gave 13 books 5 stars. I did try and rank them. I did my best. I'm really bad at picking favorites. So the top 3 are all tied, but the rest of them I did rank. Sort of. It's not perfect, but I did my best. Also, pardon my voice. I'm still getting over a cold, so I'm super congested right now. I sound rough, so ignore that. I read a lot of books last year. I read just shy of 160 books last year, which is wild for me, and I give out 5 stars very sparingly. Clearly, they only have 13 5-star books. But I read a lot of really good books, so I do try and be pretty sparing with my 5 stars. Those are reserved for like the best of the best, the books that brought me so much joy, or not joy. If it could make me sob, that's also usually going to be a 5-star. So without too much rambling, let's get into all of the books, starting with number 13, which is You Should Be So Lucky by Cat Sebastian. This year was the beginning of my love for Cat Sebastian. I've now read I think 4 of their books and loved every single one of them so far, but this one was definitely my favorite of the bunch. It was so sweet. I love these characters. I love the historical setting of it, and I'm not a sports person at all, but for some reason I really enjoyed the sports aspect of this book as well. But obviously the romance is the biggest part of this, and it was so good. I loved it so freaking much. I loved the heartache and the grief that was present in this book as well. Everything about it was so good, and it just had to get 5 stars. Number 12 was The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I also absolutely adore this author. She's one of my favorite authors. This book made me bawl my freaking eyes out. Oh my god. I sat on the couch just full on weeping while reading this book, and it was lovely. The romance was fantastic. The whole time travel thing, I loved that. I loved the side characters and the friendships, but the best thing about this book was the grief, hands down. It was so well written. Every single time this character thought about or talked about her aunt who passed away, it was a gut punch. The grief was tangible in this one, and it was just so beautifully written. Again, it had me sobbing hysterically the whole way through. It was beautifully written, a beautiful story, fantastic romance, great characters, everything was so good. I don't think I've ever cried this hard reading a book before. It was fantastic. Number 11 is Hijab Butch Blues by Lamya H. This is a beautiful memoir about a queer Muslim woman. I learned a lot from this book. It offered a perspective that I just hadn't had to think about as a white queer person before. There was a lot of commentary on privilege within the queer community and how different it can be depending on your background and your family and your history, and how, yes, we all struggle, but some people struggle so much more and in ways that I could never comprehend. And this was a really interesting, thought-provoking book for me that I really enjoyed. I read it at the very start of last year, and I've been thinking about it ever since. I loved how it was written as well. It just felt like I had a friend talking to me about their life the whole time. It was interesting and compelling and thought-provoking and all of these wonderful things that I thoroughly enjoyed. Highly recommend this one if you're looking for a good memoir. Number 10 was Arrival Most Vile by R.K. Ashwick. This is a cozy fantasy romance, and it was so freaking sweet. Oh my god. It's grumpy sunshine, rivals to friends to lovers, small town shenanigans, all these wonderful things that just had me squealing with delight. It was so joyful. I was like kicking my feet and giggling the whole time. Like, oh my god, I love this book so much. And there was a lot more to it than just the romance as well. There was a whole found family thing going on here that was just so beautiful. Found family always gets me, but this one was perfectly suited for me. It got me right in the feels. I loved it so much. I think I read this one maybe in June, I want to say, around then, and I think about it all the time. Like, I loved this book so much. It was just so sweet and so cute. And again, that friendship and found family was just the cherry on top of an already fantastic romance, and that just brought it all together to be a fantastic book. Number 9 is We Used to Live Here by Marcus Kliewer. This was fucking terrifying. Like genuinely one of the scariest books that I've ever read before. It gets right into the action. Like the book literally starts with this family knocking on the door and it's just action and go, go, go from there. It does not stop. This had me so scared. Like I was scared to go to sleep that night. I read this all in one sitting. I could not put it down. I remember I had things to do that night and I put on the audiobook just while I was cooking and having dinner with the intention of pausing it and then going and doing the things that I had to do. And I canceled my plans and just ended up sitting on the couch just like slack-jawed listening to this book for several hours and did not move until it was done. I literally couldn't stop. It was so compelling and interesting. This took turns that I did not expect at all. The ending was confusing in a really, really good way. It was so weird and so scary and played on so many of my personal biggest fears. Oh man, it had like things with like open doors, you know, when you're like standing in front of an open door and there's darkness behind you and that feeling you get. Oof, the whole time I just sat there with that like spine chilling feeling the whole time. It was so good. And I'm sure this is a universal feeling, but like when you're at the bottom of a staircase and you turn the lights off, you know you're safe, logically. There's nothing behind you, but you're still gonna sprint up the stairs as fast as you can. And it's just that like feeling of like impending doom. I had that feeling the entire way through this book. It like literally didn't stop. It was amazing. The hype is very deserved for this book. Number 8 is Thistlefoot by GennaRose, Nethercott. This was such a beautiful book. The magic in this book felt alive. It was so beautiful. I love a good sentient house book. I actually read quite a few of them around this same time period, which wasn't intentional, it just kind of happened that way. This is definitely the best of the sentient house books that I've read in quite a while. This one was phenomenal and had me literally crying on a city bus at some point. This was such a beautiful story. The family elements to it were definitely the strongest part for me. I loved the brother-sister relationship in this one, but also the chapters that were in the perspective of the house and the house telling its story from generations past was just so gorgeous. Family was such a big part of this story and it was so beautifully done. But again, the magic felt so real and so tangible to me. I loved it. Everything about this book was gorgeous. This book got a lot of hype when it came out and that is well deserved. This was such a good book. Number 7 is Mislaid in Parts Half Known by Seannan McGuire. This is the 9th book in the Wayward Children series, which is my favorite series in the entire world. I actually did a reread of the entire series in preparation for this book and I had a great time with it. It was a fantastic way to start off the year last year. This one was fantastic. We go to a dinosaur world in this one, but the biggest part of this book for me is the characters. I absolutely adore this entire cast of characters. They're all so wonderful. I can't say too much about my feelings on this book because it is the 9th book in the series, but yeah, the story in this one is just so interesting and wonderful. But again, it's mostly the characters that just keep me coming back for more every single year. Number 6 is You Meet a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi. This is also a book that made me cry harder than I thought possible. Apparently last year was the year of reading books centering on grief, because this is another book that grief is a very prominent part of this one, and it was once again beautifully done. This had me just wailing in my room. Like it was so sad and hopeful and beautiful, just so stunning. This is another book that I think about all the time and this was so unexpected for me. I do love romance books, but I don't read them that often, and I especially don't read a lot of like hard-hitting contemporary romance books. This was kind of out of left field for me. I only picked it up because I like this author. If it hadn't been for the author, I would not have read this book, and I'm so glad that I did. This was just phenomenal. This just wrecked my entire soul and I thanked it. Like it was amazing. It was messy, but again, the underlying hope in this book was so beautiful. Everything about it was gorgeous, and I can't wait to reread this book sometime and probably cry just as hard as I did the first time. Number 5 goes to The Battle Drum by Saara El-Arifi. I read the whole trilogy this year and loved every single book, but that second book was something else. Oh man, that was good. I love the world in this book and the magic system. Everything in it is so interesting, but book 2 just brought it to a whole different level. It expanded the world in a really interesting way. There were some fantastic twists, some really good cliffhangers that just left me on the edge of my seat the whole time. I could not put this book down. Anytime that I was not reading it, I was thinking about it. Like, I wanted to just sit down and devour this book, and the fact that I had to work instead of being able to read made me furious. I could not stop thinking about this book while I was reading it. Even though I've now finished the series, I still think about this book and the things that were happening in it and the character development and all of these things. It was such a well-written book. The quality was so high. This series as a whole is one of the best fantasy series that I've read in a very long time, and book 2 is what elevated this series to be why I love it so much. Number 4 is The Fragile Threads of Power by V.E. Schwab. This is the first book in the spin-off to the Darker Shade of Magic series. Darker Shades is one of my favorite series of all time, and I was so hyped for this book, but also very nervous because I'm like, what if it doesn't live up to it? But luckily it did, and I loved it so much. I love the new characters that were introduced, especially the main character, the inventor. What's her name? I'm terrible with names. Tess. I love Tess so much. I can't wait for the next books in this series and to find out what the hell is going to happen. I'm pretty sure this was one of the first books that I read last year, so I kind of forget the details a bit, but I'm definitely planning on reading it again before book 2 comes out, and I can't wait to do that and just get to experience all of the wonderfulness all over again. This was such a good book. I don't know why I ever doubted V.E. Schwab. Like, obviously I'm going to like their books. I don't think I've ever read a book by them that I didn't like, so I was worried for no reason. And then my top 3 books I could not possibly choose between. So all 3 of these are tied for first place, and those 3 are The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez, and This Is How You Lose the Time War by Max Gladstone and Amal El-Mohtar. Every once in a while I'll come across a book that just buries itself right into my soul and stays there and lives there forever, and all 3 of those books gave me that exact feeling. They're all very different in terms of plot, but they have that similar soul feeling to it. I literally could not choose between these 3 as to which one I liked more. It's not possible. So all 3 of them get the number 1 spot. These are the kind of books where I can't even articulate why I love them so much or what that feeling even feels like. It just kind of is, and these books are just something else. You know, they're on a level higher than anything else that I could possibly ever comprehend. So, which is not the most helpful in terms of reviews, but it is what it is. Yeah, they're all very different in terms of plot, but it's just that feeling that they give me that is so special and so rare to find, and I was lucky enough to find 3 of them this year, so I love that for me. But yeah, those are the top books of last year, all the books that I gave 5 stars to. I had such a phenomenal reading year. I read so many good books, and just in general, last year was fantastic as well. I came back to YouTube finally after like a 1.5 year long break. I did some traveling. I went to Buffalo for a Hosier concert. I went to California to watch one of my good friends get married. I got a promotion at work. Like, I had a fantastic year, and all of these wonderful books were a great part of that. And yeah, overall 2024 was a really good year for me, and I love that. But let me know what the best book that you read last year was. I would love to hear all your favorites down below so I can hopefully check them out at some point or other. And if you've read any of my top books, please let me know as well. I want to talk about these books so badly. But that'll do it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will catch you guys later. Bye.